G'day everyone, it's me, the anti-theocrat, back with another one. Hopefully this cat will stay quiet, given I've let him into the room. Hopefully my phone will actually be silent, and the only noise we should have is the heater running in the background. Which I'm not turning off for you. If you can hear it, too bad. It's another one of those lovely cold desert days. So, I'm doing a book review. That's where we are with this series. I'm going to do a series of videos and I'm going to do a book review. I had a book land on my desk. I did not have to pay for it. Thank fuck for that, because I would not have paid a cent for this book. It is essentially a teens book aimed at I guess the tweens. It's only 48 pages long, but it is going to take probably 48 episodes to get through, or half of that, because it is in 2-page spreads, as is common with tween-based science and other such books. This one, however, is far from that genre. This one is more like indoctrination. And that's why it bothers me, because I have sons going through one through the education system, one entered into it recently, and this is the sort of shit that's being put out that I'm supposed to accept as a parent to be the way we are going to educate our kids in the future. What am I talking about? You are fucking wondering what I'm talking about, or so am I. No, here it is. What is masculinity? Why does it matter? And other big questions. That's what we're covering. That's it. It's a 48-page book designed for tweens, as stated. Now, the back cover of this book, and let's see if we can do this thing. You're going to let me change. Oh, there we go. Here we go. The back cover tells us, where have ideas about masculinity come from? How does stereotyping affect children? What is the future of masculinity? Okay, I'm not sure any of those are important questions myself, but the book asks them. Must be serious stuff. I won't read the rest of that, because it's essentially the first page, the first 2 pages, which will be our first episode. Because we've got a few things to cover getting through the first page. And it's almost every sentence of this book needs questioning. It's just that way. I'm not going to go light on this book. I'm not going to pretend that this book requires a balanced review, because this book does not present a balanced viewpoint. This can be outright stated at this point to be a feminist narrative on masculinity. And I'm going to address it in that way. So if you're expecting me to put forward any balance with my arguments, you won't find it. This book is the balance, okay? I will read through the book as we go, so you will know what I mean. Now, the next thing is I was going to show you the list of books in this series, which might give you an idea why I'm taking this this method of addressing it. So here's the back page where they give us others from the series. What is humanism? How do you live without a god? See, straight up, the cover itself is incorrect. Humanism is the idea of putting people first, treating people with equal importance regardless of any other aspects of who or what they are, regardless of their beliefs, regardless of their political points of view, anything. It just means that people are important to you. All people equally important. Now, I used to identify as humanist within certain contexts. I like the idea that I can address people equally when I first meet them. And I wait for them to prove to me that they are an arsehole and not worthy of my time, or not worthy of my respect. But I try to put on a humanist front with all people on first meeting. So, to a degree, I have identified as humanist, and I used to identify using that actual term until the American Humanist Society decided we needed black humanism, feminist humanism, and LGBT humanism, which to me was not the intent of humanism. Right? Humanism is everyone treated equally, not everybody given their own variation on humanism. If it doesn't have that equality, then it's not humanism. Well, guess what? You can believe in a God and be a humanist. I have known many theists who use the term humanists to describe themselves, and I would have no doubt at all that they were. The way I found these people to be was very much humanist. They considered people to be the important aspect of their lives. Now, the reason for that is that you can have your belief in God and believe your belief in God is pro-human. You see, these things are not mutually exclusive. So how do you even title a book? What is humanism? How do you live without a God? That's just a fucking lie. That's atheism, you dumb fucks. Alright? And I'm an atheist. I recognise that as atheism. It has fuck all to do with humanism. Okay. What is feminism? Why do we need it? And other big questions. Well, there's a leading question for you right on the cover, isn't there? So what do we expect from this book? A fair review of feminism? Do we? Because why do we need it? Obviously we need it, but why do we need it? It's not a leading enough question right on the fucking cover of the thing. I could easily ask, why the fuck why don't we need it? What's wrong with it? What's wrong with feminism? It's as leading a question. It is a leading question as well, and probably more appropriate than why do we need it? Who are refugees and migrants? What makes people leave their homes? And other big questions. I am betting my bottom dollar that this does not form a relationship between refugees and migrants of a legal variety, i.e. refugees as described by the UN as people running from war zones and life-threatening situations to the nearest safe nation. That is the way the UN describes them. Or migrants who come by legal means through application to a country and through the assessment process that goes through. And I bet they never make the counter reference to illegal refugees, the sorts who are running because they simply want more money or better jobs. Or illegal migrants, the sorts of people who run across borders to escape poverty and look for better jobs. These are not recognised internationally. Economic migration, economic refugees are not recognised as appropriate under the terms refugee and migrant. These are people we think should work on improving their own nations, not simply run to a wealthier one. Alright, I'm betting that book doesn't address that situation. I'm betting it never mentions it. What is gender? How does it define us? And other big questions. Yeah. Can anyone see the theme? What is consent? Why is it important? You want to bet that's the feminist line on consent? That you must ask with every fucking breath if you can make any move at all? Can I breathe now? Can I breathe now? Can I breathe now? Can I breathe now? You want to bet your ass on that one. What is right and wrong? Who decides where values come from? Well, these are the same people who said you can't be humanist and have a god, so I'm suspecting that they will not address the idea that a person can base their idea of what is right and wrong and how you assess your place in life through a religion. And I don't have a problem with this. I'm an atheist, I'm an anti-theist, but I understand that there are good people out there who in of themselves declare that their religion is the basis for their morality, for their understanding of right and wrong. Now, whether I agree with that or not does not matter. It is how they find themselves. Now, I can question that. It is reasonable and fair for me to question that. But if at the end of the day they still want to decide right from wrong and declare that it is due to something they believe in, it's not my job to say otherwise. I don't think the people who think that humanism is a life without God can tell me in any accurate terms how people decide right from wrong, or who gets to decide it. Now, I actually understand law to be an extension of the moral values of the nations with which we live in. So, nations that have a lesser legal code than my own nation, what I would consider to be lesser, the Muslim states, let's just put it on fucking the table, shall we? Those countries measure, the law is still a measure of the morality of those nations as prescribed by the dominant religion. So, law is an extension of the morality of the society in which we live. And I'm not sure that these people are going to address that either. What is race? Who are racists? Why does skin colour matter? And other big questions. Well, I can tell you this: the answer to this right up front is Claire and Nidesh. I think it is Nilish. They're the racists. Right up front, they're the racists. And anyone else associated with this book, they're the racists because they think skin colour matters. The leading question here is, why does skin colour matter? Which is precluding the idea that it doesn't. That everyone is this. It's like humanists can't be without God. Well, it's apparently now racist to believe that colour doesn't matter. That a person is the measure of their worth as a human being, their achievements, their goals, their aims, their behaviour, whatever in the fuck it is, the right and wrong, and who decides on where values come from, that shit. That's not the measure of a person anymore. According to the leading question on what is race, who are racists, skin colour is what matters, making the authors of that book and all associated with it racists. Because when you decide that a person's skin colour is the way to judge them, you are a racist. What is politics? Why should we care? And other big questions. 48 pages, I'm not sure how many other big questions they're going to come up with, but each of these books suggests there's going to be big questions. I admit I haven't read this book through. I've read enough of it to know what I'm reading, and it's pretty shit. But I don't think children need to be aware of politics. I really don't. I think there is no reason to introduce children to politics. You can introduce children to ideas, you can introduce children to thought processes, a whole lot of other things, and when they become adult, it is up to them to make their decisions about how their politics rests. It is not your job to make children politically involved. My son's I've always it's a bit of a game that I play with them, but it's an educational game. It's a game that teaches them something. But when my sons ask me questions, they get the appropriate answer. So a stupid question gets a stupid answer. And the line that always tags it is, when you come up with a better question, I will give you a better answer. And I know with one son who has finished school, left, gone on with his own life, that this has worked. This is something that I did just because I'm that sort of idiot. And yeah, it sort of leaned itself to my idea that you teach children to think, not what to think. It's like Santa. Yes, my kids grew up with gifts and the belief and all the rest of it, but it was an exercise in their discovery of truth. And with my eldest, it was an amazing thing to watch how he discovered the truth and how he actually tested us. Right, it was the tooth fairy that was the breaking point. He hid a tooth from us and it didn't get exchanged for money. It's brilliant. Absolutely fucking brilliant. So, this idea that you ask good questions, you get good answers, just fitted nicely for me. And it taught my eldest son, and it will teach my youngest son, how to think, not what to think. And when they become adults, as my eldest has, he will find his own footing in the political world and vote appropriately. And I live in a nation where you have to vote. You have to enroll, you have to vote. So it is important that you understand politics, but it is important that you come to it aware that there are no alliances in politics. There is no one party that will suit you for your entire life. There is no party that will always be on your side. It's not important to teach kids politics. Alright, so we haven't even got into this book yet. We're still just talking about the other books in the series to give you a framework for where this series is going. We're 20 minutes in, so I'm not sure we're getting the first 2 pages done, but let's see if we can. We can get a 2-page spread done in this one, then we might get 2 or 3 of them done in the next ones. So, where do we go from here? The contents. Now, if anyone was unsure if this is a cult doctrine, 1, 2, my experience by somebody, and my experience, 3, my experience 4, my experience 5, my experience 6, my experience 7, and my experience 8 by a lesbian. So yes, a lesbian's going to tell you about masculinity, a butch dyke. But yes, did you see that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 calls to emotional pleas, essentially. Yes, this is people putting down their stories as if these are factual understandings that we should all take to heart. This is just cult indoctrination. This is the way cults work. Oh, I have a relationship with Jesus. It's not a religion. No. Oh, in my, sexuality. It's my experience that. This is just an indoctrination doctrine. And if you thought it wasn't, there are 8. 8. They fitted in 8 of these. Not these people discussing something they know about the topic, but something that they experienced, that they can relate. It's not how you write a book like this. What is masculinity? Why does it matter? This is the first 2-page spread. This is the first topic. So let's move into the book proper, shall we? If you watch the news or read news stories, you're likely to come across people discussing masculinity. It's a word being used more now than ever before. But what does it mean, and why is it in the news so much? Well, no. I don't live in the Twitter sphere. I actually don't hear people talking about masculinity often. Even the shirt I'm wearing only says, I'm mansplaining. If I'm mansplaining, you may need woman learning. That's the shirt I'm wearing today. And no, it doesn't mention masculinity at all. Trust me, I do not hear masculinity in the real world. I do not see it on TV or hear about it, except when I'm watching some BBC show that heads in the direction of this form of cultism. Oh yeah, BBC fucking television programming. If what I'm not hearing is anti-Brexit, it's fucking I'm a woman and I fucking need all these extra things because I'm not earning enough money. All the fucking usual bullshit that comes from that realm, and it is all fucking bullshit. But yes. Let's move on, shall we? No, I do not hear masculinity spoken of often. No, not even when a man kills somebody, I do not hear masculinity as a word in that. Or the only people bringing up masculinity are people like you, because you feed on this idea that there is something wrong with men and masculinity that needs to be fixed. It is an incorrect idea, but it is where you make your money. So no, it's not in the news more. What it is in your Twitter sphere more. And by the way, yes, these people are active in these realms. Some of them have very active Twitter accounts. The people who are all have their personal stories in this book. So yeah, I don't think these people live in the real world. I think they live in their bubbles of ideology, and that's why they hear it so often. Now, looking at the 2-page spread, and you'll have to give me a tick because I'm going to read this from the book. And in order to do that, I should have had the book open. And you can hear book pages. Look at that. Real paper pages. Put my glasses on. And what is masculinity? Yes. Okay. Why a book about masculinity? And I'm just going to read the whole section before I pass comment, because I just found that if I tried to comment as I went, this just ended up way too long. Why a book about masculinity? People do not all agree on what masculinity is. Some may be talking about toxic masculinity, for example, in relation to behaviour of some powerful men in Hollywood film industry. Others may be discussing the crisis in masculinity, pointing, for example, to the fact that suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 50 in the UK. Others still may be arguing that we need to reclaim or redefine masculinity. This can be seen in television programs such as Queer Eye, which encourage men to express their uncertainty about life and their vulnerability. What I love about this is they have essentially proven my point that they live within bubbles, because their examples are the Hollywood film industry and Queer Eye. Seriously, the media is your example. Okay, so let's have a quick brief, shall we? The Hollywood film industry. Which particular problem do you have with that? The casting couch? Is it the casting couch? Do we get to question the femininity that drives women to participate in the casting couch as a shortcut to fame? Do we get to mention that the casting couch is a two-way street? That you always have the option to walk out the door and find a different way. You have the option to go and do the hard work, right? One of my partners is reading Michael Caine's autobiography at the moment, or whatever sort of book it is. It's a, I don't know, I haven't read it. Michael Caine. What I know about him is he worked hard. He was hungry for a long time, poverty stricken. Went through a divorce that stripped him of everything he had, and a whole range of other things happened to the man, but he worked hard and formed a career. And to my knowledge, didn't partake of the casting couch. Not that that's particularly something available to adult males. I believe Hollywood doesn't mind the little boys, but the adult males, I'm not sure the casting couch is as available as it is to these women who made that choice. But there are other things about Hollywood. Is it the fact that you think we should have more women in lead roles? Have you considered writing good material where women play the lead roles? Have you? Because it can't be that hard, can it? They write new material with men in the lead roles all the time. And I mean, it's not like women have never had the lead roles. The first time I read this, what came to mind was Alien. Shit, she did a few of those, and yeah, not only a lead female role, but she toned up and she was a muscly fighting bitch from hell in a sci-fi movie. What do you want? It's not like you can't write these things. We're in a period at the moment where you have to steal everything. James Bond has to be made female. Doctor Who has to be made female. Why don't you write your own bloody characters? You know, the Doctor Who series, a little while ago, produced a cloned daughter of Doctor Who. Why don't you write that character? Why did you have to change the Doctor? Why did you have to ruin an existing male role model? All right, quite often in this discussion we talk about how there are no female role models. Well, fucking write them. Why do you have to steal all the ones from the boys? By the way, the same partner I was talking about before, she loved Doctor Who. She grew up with Doctor Who the same as I did. Through the 80s. Big fans. I got into reading with a collection of books that must be more than 100 strong now in the Doctor Who series. We were massive fans until you started writing the social justice shit in. That character, Bill, one of the companions, was more or less the end of it for us. My partner still wishes that bitch had died a horrid death. She should have died a fucking Cyberman painfully in that shell. She got a cheap out and it wasn't fucking fair. Horrid fucking little lesbian bitch who had to remind us with every fucking episode. So, and by the way, it's not that we're anti-lesbian. This is a polyamorous household. You know, there's a lot of ideas and concepts here in this household that are considered acceptable. It's when you make the character so fucking repugnant that it becomes an issue. Told you it took too long if I went over everything. Okay, so suicide. This is your go-to for a masculinity crisis, is it? Suicide. Not, again, we could go back to why is it that men are feeling this sort of pressure. I actually suspect men have always been under this sort of pressure. I mean, it is up to men to make the first move on dates. It is up to men to prove themselves worthy. It is up to men to earn the money to gain respect. And I'm an at-home father, so I know what it's like to have women fucking telling you to go and do what you're meant to do as a man. That's not unusual in my life. So yeah, why did you go to suicide? Why didn't you go to the difficulties of having to be the one who always pays for the meals on dates, always has to make the first move, will go without sex maybe for his entire life, Whereas the ugliest, haggiest, fattest old bitch woman, you've seen them, the ones who can't even roll themselves out of bed, they can get laid. How you find your way through the folds with your dick to get there, apparently they can get laid. But there are guys who will go their entire lives without that luxury, without having to pay for it. Well, we all pay for it. Oh well. Relationships are about paying. By the way, male and female, we all pay a price. Many people believe that the stories we are now told... Oh, hang on. I'll go back to Queer Eye, shall I? Because there was something about Queer Eye here that encourages men to express their uncertainty about life and their vulnerability. It did nothing of the fucking sort. Don't pretend like that was some highfalutin fucking psych show. It showed a guy how to dress. It decorated his fucking house. And, helped him get laid by his missus. That's all it was about. That was it. He made a nice meal. His house was decorated tidied up in a way that she would appreciate, and she was invited around for a meal and hopefully a shag afterwards. Had no fucking... it wasn't like it was inviting men to bring out their gay or anything, right? By the way, I didn't mind that show. I didn't find it offensive or repulsive or anything. It was what it was. Cheap entertainment. Many people believe that the stories we're told about how men behave are too narrow, and that they put pressure on boys and men to behave in certain ways. Not only that, they will tell boys and girls that men are more important than women, and that men should be in charge in families, in business, and politics, for example. So whilst these stories of masculinity are limiting for boys, they are especially damaging for girls and women. Oh, so a book about masculinity, you're going to tell us about how it's terrible for girls and women. Well, that's fucking nice, isn't it? It's also not right. I've been an at-home father for 22, going on 23 years. I'm probably in the 23rd year of being an at-home father. I have not experienced as much insulting and repugnant behaviour as at the hands of women, and especially feminist women. It is a woman that I can still visualise who walked up to me one time at a playgroup, I think it was, or a school, and just told me outright to go and get a job and do what I was meant to be doing to support my family. This was something that no man has ever said to me. Now, I've had men chuckle about the idea that I'm an at-home father. There's something that over the years has gotten less so, but not the way that women will treat we at-home fathers. I am still excluded from coffees around at the coffee shop. I don't get those invitations. My wife gets those invitations. I don't get those invitations. They know I'm the at-home parent. I don't get those invitations. Play dates at the park where all the kids get together at park. Never. In 23 years of being an at-home father have I got those invitations. I'm an outsider. I am excluded. It's not great for my kids because they're excluded too. If I want my kids to play with other kids at the park, I just have to take them down there and hope there's kids there. It has, with one of my kids growing up out on properties where I had to make special trips into town for him to get that interaction, it was fucking hard. But I'm excluded because I'm male, and I'm not excluded by masculinity. And by the way, I've known other at-home fathers who've said exactly the same things. Since I was in school, actually. I met my first at-home father when I was in high school, and he had the same problems. His own children didn't respect the fact that he was at home to care for them. I know, because I went to school with his oldest daughter. So yes, don't give me this shit about how we're telling boys that they're more important either, because that's just absolute fucking bullshit. Right? There was this pair of girls when I was in school, Butch Dykes. And yeah, I'm going for the emotional thing here. I only have my own examples, don't I, to live by. I'm no expert in these fields as these people present themselves. So yeah, there's a pair of girls. I suspect one of them was straight, but they were just a big pair of girls. Chunky. Not fat, just big girls, big build. But I'm pretty sure one of them was a Butch Dyke. But they were mates, and they would catch me on a stairwell, and I was a skinny little runty 6 foot tall guy. I was just really fucking rake thin. But I was 6 foot tall, so I towered over these girls by a little bit. But they'd meet me on a set of stairs and bully me. They started out with trying to make something of my nickname, which I haven't used my birth name since I was 10 years old. My nickname is the name that everyone knows me by. Even my partners call me by my nickname. So, yeah, they used to try and pick on me for that, but that didn't rub because, fuck it was my nickname. I didn't mind it. It was just who I was. It's still who I am. So they started doing things like try to give me a shove that might push me down the stairs. Now, I was raised that I wasn't allowed to touch girls. I wasn't allowed to hit them. I wasn't allowed to retaliate. Because girls are special. Girls aren't boys. I'm allowed to hit boys. If a boy hits me, I'm allowed to hit him back. But if a girl hits me, I'm going to possibly be stronger than that girl. Now, these two girls I was probably not stronger than at that time. But I was still raised not to hit girls, because girls are special. And this idea permeates more than just the idea of not hitting. Girls are not inferior to boys. The idea that men go into politics, that men go into business and succeed in these fields is not the same as do we think girls are less. No. I live in a town with business, because all the guys in the town work in the mines or with the engineering companies associated with the mines, whatever. Every shop in town's owned by a woman. The women run the town. The mayor's a woman, fucking 80, 90 years old or whatever the fuck she is. She's been in power for longer than anyone else in the town's been alive. But everyone who runs this town is a woman, and nobody is looking down on them and just going, oh, you've got a vagina. Well, you mustn't be as good, as if we had a guy running the place. It's just not fucking true. And I'm old, and I remember my childhood being told these things. By the way, that's not how I raise my sons. I raise my sons that if someone raises a fist to you, you raise one back. It's that simple. And that's because of equality. Because the women have taken equality to mean they can raise a fist to a man. And they will then rest on the idea that because they are female, they can't get in trouble for it. Well, I'd rather my sons were not the victims of somebody who cannot be prosecuted or persecuted for being a violent bitch, as I had in my school days. So I raise my sons to raise a fist back. I don't know that they will. I did essentially raise pacifists. I myself prefer to be a pacifist. But should it ever turn that somebody looks like doing you harm, Don't be afraid to harm them back. And it doesn't matter who or what they are. And that's because of shit like this. Because of shit like I was raised with the idea that I could not hit girls, so girls took it upon themselves to hit me. What does masculinity mean? Our aim in this book is to get you to think about big questions to do with masculinity. Oh, so fucking important, isn't it? One of these questions is, what do people mean by masculinity? The answer isn't always straightforward. Sometimes people use the word masculinity to describe ways that many men behave and the attitudes they hold. At other times, people use the word masculinity to describe the stories we are told about how men should behave and act. I would just like to say that the definition for masculinity is not a difficult one. They will come around to even explain what I'm about to explain, but this is my understanding. Masculinity is the traits common to the majority of men. And some masculinity is seriously the majority, right? Our masculine traits, as in our physical ones, they relate to all men, right? If you put a man of the same size and weight, essentially, with no special exercise or anything else, side by side with a woman of the same build, the man is going to be 40% stronger. He's going to have, in the upper body, he's going to be approximately 40% stronger. He's going to have his hips, his thigh bones, his hips set in a manner that is more attuned with running, less attuned with giving birth in the way a woman's are. Right, these are physical traits of masculinity that cannot be denied. Even when you take all the hormones you want and cut off as many bits as you want, you will still have the XY chromosomes, which will drive your bone structure to be in certain ways. It will develop your body in certain ways. It is true that you will diminish some of your muscle mass by taking loads of hormones, but on the whole, you will still be masculine. It's amazing how many of even the most beautiful transvestites, transsexuals, whatever the fuck you want to call them, trannies, when you set the profile, right? When you look at their arms, their upper arms, when you look at their hips, they still look masculine. It doesn't matter what work they do. It is extremely rare to not find them looking masculine. Right, so there are genuine biological masculine facts that are common to the majority of men. But there are also behaviours that are common to the majority. And that is masculinity. If you look up masculinity in a dictionary, oh look, they already got there sooner than I remembered it being. You'll find something along the lines of masculinity means the qualities considered typical of men, but there are many more questions you can ask about this, such as, I don't think there are many more questions you can ask about this, but go on. Who exactly are these men? Well, that would be everyone born male with an XY chromosome, wouldn't it? They would be the men. They would even be the boys. Because masculinity exists in boys too, you know. It's not exempt. Does this mean masculinity changes from one man or one person? Can a woman be described as masculine? Says the question in brackets. You know, a woman can be described as masculine, but it is a purely behavioural thing. Sometimes it is like the Butch Dyke suggestion I've put forward before earlier and many times before, a Butch Dyke can be a boxy woman, right? Essentially, she's square. She doesn't have hips. She's just, from the shoulders down to the feet, she's a square woman. She looks butch. Now you can say that is masculine, but I promise you, when you get her clothes off, unless she's had bits removed or reshaped surgically, you will find under that just a boxy woman. She will have all the things women have. So you can say she looks masculine. She can behave masculine. You can have tomboys, girls who prefer to rough and tumble than to play with dolls. But these are behavioural traits, and they still fall into a minority. Does this mean masculinity changes from one man or to another, righto? Yes. Because we're only talking about the major traits attributable to the majority of men. And that doesn't mean we all have the same, right? I'm an at-home father. And we can be considered to be a not very masculine endeavour in life. I don't think I've given up any of my masculinity in order to do this job, but it could be considered that way. It could be considered a variance. I'm also polyamorous. Who cares? Does it detract? Does it exempt me from those things that the majority of men have? I don't like sport a hell of a lot. I played hockey for a while, but I'm not a supporter of any particular teams anywhere or anything. But does that make me less masculine? No, it doesn't. I still have the physical attributes of a man. I still like doing things that men do. I like being bold and adventurous, and, you know, I'm not even going into the details. It's just how I like to address things, how I like to do things. I have an engineering mind. I am a problem solver. Now, I know these things are not exempt from women, but these are considered to be male traits. I have all those things while still having variation. Stupid questions. How common does something need to be typical? Well, let's say more than 80%, huh? I would actually say that it's the majority if it's 51%. But, you know, we can say typical if it's more than 80, and my understanding is that regular masculine traits, as you people would put them, apply to about 86% of the population, the male population, and the female population where femininity is concerned. So, yeah, is that typical enough for you? 86%? Well, I'll just say more than 80% could be considered to be typical. Duh. Why was that even a question? How's it framed? What are you asking? How does something become a typical quality? How can typical qualities change? Well, it becomes a typical quality because, you know, more than 80% of the people doing it do it. How can it change? Well, biologically, not really, it can't. But, you know, as far as behaviour goes, I don't know, probably still can't really, because the majority of people don't give a flying fuck about the shit that you're talking about. The majority of people are quite happy to have male and female standardized by biological terms relations. Man, defender, hunter, woman, nurturer, gatherer. Right? That's what we are biologically. And those relationships fall are behind everything that has happened since the times of our basic being hunter-gatherers. So I don't know that you can just change these things. Oh, you can play all sorts of games you like, but at the heart of all of this, there are still going to be men and women. And I just today finished listening to V, and I don't know if you all know V, but you should get to know V. V's a clever fella. But just listening to V talking about social justice warriors, you know, the sort. I'll just describe them in that way, because it's a pretty apt description for a group of people who found that getting rid of the blue hair and the piercings and the rest of that shit and falling into line with societal norms and expectations was advantageous to them, and they actually enjoyed it because they got over their rebellious streak and they discovered that, hey, it's not so bad to be male or female and form lasting family relationships with people. I mean, we hear enough about the feminists all moaning, oh, I waited until I was in my early 40s to think about getting a family and having kids, and now I can't find any guys. Because the norms for humanity don't work according to your ideology. So no, I don't know you can change these things. Are the typical qualities of men due to social factors or biology, or a combination of both? Should we be dividing actions, attitudes, and people into masculine and feminine? Well, I don't think we have to divide people into masculine and feminine. I think this is something that you think we do. I don't know that it is something we actually do, especially in the modern world. I mean, I'm not sure we did it before now. I'm damn sure we don't do it now. I think this is something that you are projecting on society. But yes, I also think this comes largely through our biology. Because we are a dimorphic species. It means we have two recognizable genders, and it is in order for the survival of our species, which is the basis of which is the basis of the idea of species, that we must mate in order to produce offspring to continue the species. The continuation is what a species is. So, because we are dimorphic, because our children take 10 or more years to develop to a point where they can fend for themselves, because somebody has to do the caring and nurturing while somebody else has to take the risks of gathering and hunting and defending, then yeah, everything that society has developed through our history has been an aspect of our biological requirement. You don't get to ignore that. You just don't. It is true that we've made some pretty outlandish rulings to retain those conditions, but it doesn't change the fact that the biology is behind so much of what we've done. No, we don't need to define people as masculine and feminine. It's not important. There have always been many ways of being a man. I'll just keep reading. There have often been people who have claimed that there are correct and incorrect ways of being a man. Consequently, while some of the people we will discuss in this book are interested in explaining our ideas and representations of masculinity, yes, And that's the first time you will hear them admit that this is a cult trying to indoctrinate you. Because they will discuss in this book, are interested in expanding our ideas and representations of masculinity, their ideas and representations. It is the first time you will hear them admit that this is just cult indoctrination. It is not about presenting ideas and allowing people to formulate their own concepts, or presenting truths and allow people to build their own lives around basic truths. This is about expanding their ideas. I said I'd read on. I'll try. Others are interested in calling into question masculinity and femininity as ways of viewing and organising people. I don't know that I believe that a great deal. Maybe within religious circles, and I think a lot of the time these people think that everyone who opposes them must be a Christian or something. I know they don't think they're Muslims, because Muslims, these people really believe that Islam is a religion of peace and shit. I don't know what the fuck they're on about. As an atheist, I've never recognised that, I'll tell you. But as a social justice warrior, apparently we are allowed to do that. But I think this is projection. I think they are projecting on the rest of us what they expect because of our religious beliefs. Well, as an atheist, I don't have a religious belief. I don't have this deep need to represent masculinity or femininity. I understand that in the past people said, oh, look at those butch guys going out to play footy. Or, oh, she's a sweet looking girl up there on the catwalk in her bikini. I understand those representations of masculinity and femininity, and it doesn't fucking matter, does it? It just doesn't matter. It's not important. It's like you referring to Hollywood and Queer Eye. You'd have to be some sort of weird fucking bubble or ideology, a follower of some weird cult ideology, to think that this really fucking mattered. Okay, talking about masculinity. At times in this book we will write about our own experiences of masculinity, growing up as boys and becoming men. And the women will also discuss it, and they won't be discussing how they grew up as boys and became men. No. Look, Dr. Fen Coles doesn't look like a fucking cross-dresser. Selena Godden, I'm not so fucking sure, and Aisha Small, maybe they had their bits sliced off or had just done a lot of hormones. But these people are all getting a fucking go in at masculinity, and 3 of them are women. And by the way, I will, seeing as we're at that point now, let's change the page, shall we? There, these are the people we're going to be hearing from. We will also draw some of the studies of masculinity that have been written by women. Oh, thank you. That will explain the chapter on feminism's idea of what masculinity is. Stop fucking picking at your pants, you dick. It's going straight through the microphone. Press studying these work strides. Studies of masculinity that have been written by women. Indeed, masculinity studies is an area of research that grew out of feminism. Yes, a cult decided that masculinity was important because it needed a Satan. That's right. Masculinity is Satan. The patriarchy is hell. Anything to do with men is the satanic part of their cult. Right? Every good cult needs an enemy. Every good cult needs a clear view of what's right and wrong. And anything masculine is wrong. And yes, feminists did that. Well done for admitting for the first time that this book is feminist propaganda. We have invited a number of people, see below. So what have we got? We got Aisha Small, Dr. Fen Coles, Brianne Lumpkin, Dave Pickering, David Andy Williams, and Selena Godden. Now, I've looked up these people, and they all seem to be virtual nobodies. Some of them with Twitter profiles, active Twitter profiles. Some of them, like Dr. Andy Williams, I don't know what the fuck he does. Dave Pickering's a fucking performance artist. Now, I'm a performance artist. I actually set up a profitable business as a performance artist. During my years of being an at-home father, because I got all that spare time, not fucking getting invited to coffee and play dates. So, you know, unlike the mothers sitting around their asses doing fuck all, I actually started a business. Now, Dave Pickering, from what I've seen of his work, resembles exactly the worst of everything I believe about performance art. The fucking little Weasley cunts who run the whole fucking system. Jesus fucking Christ. But yes, the other two blokes are involved in teaching and shit. Oh, God. Anyway, the people they've invited, as you see, 3 women, 3 trans, I don't know, are going to also tell us about masculinity as they perceive it. And as we've had to admit, through a feminist lens. Not everyone agrees on everything, but we hope you will find it interesting and see where people agree and disagree. Well, we will, but we will save that for the next one when we get to discuss the authors of the book, who are the next 2 full-page spreads. That's right. The whole of What Is Masculinity was a 2-page spread, but the authors, and each of these people represented here on these pictures, they get complete 2-page spreads of their own. And again, I remind you, this is a cult indoctrination paper. It is not about delving into the big questions and answering them. It is merely about telling you what these people think you need to believe. Alright, and I am going to go at this point. That's an hour-long video, which was more than I was planning. But as you can see, this is not something that's just easy to pick up and read through. It took a fucking lot of work to get it to this point where I could just sit and talk about it. I'll skip through the personal stories of these people as fast as I possibly can to get down to the informative pages or indoctrinational pages. And hopefully we can get through this entire book in half a dozen parts or something. But I really feel this book needs time. You can't just brush over it. Anyway. Try a new format with the graphics for something different. I've also got some animated stuff I want to try, but we'll see what happens. May your gods remain fictional. I will see you in the next one. Whatever. See you then.